Hello everybody and welcome to this new video from Bikotic. Bike stuff, week 24, 2022. We're nearly halfway through the year, Tour de France is coming up, so let's look at some stuff. So I'm making this video entirely with the Bikotic.com website. Check it out. You can have a look at all the bikes all lined up. And it's a great way to check out bikes that you might be thinking about buying. Big thank you to everybody that's donated to support the Bikotic channel. You guys rock. And I'm not going to say too much right now, but at some point I am going to unlock some features on the website to people that donate, just as a little thank you. So like I say, the Tour de France is coming up pretty soon now. And a few weeks before the tour, we always have the Critérium du Dauphiné, and quite often new bikes pop up. Well, this one popped up, and you've probably all seen it already, but it's the new Trek Madone. Pretty funky looking bike, and this is the original photo that was going around, and I thought, well, that's a nice side view. Let's fire up Photoshop, and I came up with this. I flipped it round, cut out the background, chucked on some wheels and a group set, and of course it's not going to be 100% right. I've had to do a bit of warping here to get it into the right place, but we can now compare it to the outgoing version of the Trek Madone, and if we fade between the two there like that, we can see some obvious differences. And if we just zoom in, clearly the stem is quite different. All around here is quite different. Like I say, I've had to warp this a bit, so it's not going to be exactly right, but definitely different. Top tube, much straighter. And then we get to the funky bit, and as you can see, very different to what was there before. We used to have the ISO speed decoupler, but if the old Madone had a problem, it was the fact that it was quite heavy. This is the 12 grand version, and it still weighed 7.86 kilograms. So we've taken out the ISO speed decoupler, and if we look at another angle, you can see that we now have this big hole in the seat tube, where on the old version, like I say, we had the decoupler thing and a pretty straight seat tube. So most people are saying that this hole here is for aerodynamics, presumably it will be more aerodynamic, but we also have to imagine that this here is going to offer some flex, because no one's going to put up with an uncomfortable aero bike anymore like the old days. So there must be some flex in there, and fingers crossed there'll be no snappage. Obviously Trek will have thought of that, and they will have put some super strong carbon in there, I'm sure. But we definitely don't want anybody sitting on the floor at 40 miles an hour. Also of note, we can see that the seat tube has actually been pushed further back, sculpted around the back wheel, and what that then means is that we can tuck the water bottle in really nice and tight and neatly here, just on top of this massive bottom bracket. Presumably is going to be much more aero here than what we had before. And actually, if we look at some water bottles on the old version, you can see that the new version is going to be a lot neater there, presumably offering some aero benefit. I like that. You may need to have quite long arms to get your rear water bottle out though, so it's quite low down. And actually it does remind me slightly of what they've done on the BMC Timemachine, difference being here that they've done it with some Tupperware. If we look at the differences there, all to make it more aerodynamic. I quite like this paint on the BMC. What do you think? You like that colour? Back of the bike all looks pretty similar there, really. Maybe a bit more chunky on the new one. So I for one am very excited about the release of the new Madone, probably during the Tour de France. And if we look at the outgoing version, it was £13,600, my word. So it's slightly terrifying to think the 2023 version of the Madone, could it be a 15k bike? That would not surprise me at all. Let's wait and see, shall we? Also at the Dauphiné, this popped up. A new Canyon Ultimate. Again, you've probably seen all this before already. Kind of hard to see what's going on in this picture, but if you saw my video from the other day about the Canyon Endurace, I did point out that it was time, or way past time, for a new Ultimate, and here it is. Not many details about what's changed, other than we've got a D-shaped seat post, and the bars look pretty much like the Eero bars with the funky quill type stem and the extendable handlebar thing. But let's wait and see when Canyon release the bike properly. Looking forward to that as well. So since I made my last video and asked you guys to suggest bikes to put into the Bikotic database, I've had lots of suggestions from you. First up, it's the Specialized S-Works Epic EVO. I love the way this bike looks. Great colour, wicked tyres, super nice. So what do people think of this dropper post with the whole wireless thing on it? Is it crazy over engineered? Not sure myself. It's a bit bizarre. I thought we'd compare this to the Canyon Lux Trail, and that's fading between the two bikes there, because there seems to be a few synergies between these two bikes. And a question I have for you guys, if I hit the search button, I've actually put in a bike type called downcountry, and if I click on that, you'll see the only bike that I've got in there is the Lux Trail, but I've actually put the Epic in the XC category. There it is there. Now, is that right? There's nothing on the Specialized website that says that this bike is downcountry, but they do look quite similar, don't they? So my question is, what makes a bike downcountry? This is kind of a new category since I used to do a lot of mountain biking, so I find it a bit confusing if I'm honest. Comment down below and maybe I can make a video to clear that up. So fading between these two bikes, the real shocker is obviously the price. This is the CF6 Lux Trail at $3,199, and that is £9,200 cheaper than the S-Works Epic EVO. Now, clearly they're quite differently spec'd, but my gosh, that's a lot of money, isn't it? £9,200. £9,200. What? That's insane. Are you having a giraffe? Jeez, you could be having two giraffes. So I thought I'd better load up the cheaper version. And if we just load that up there, this is obviously the S-Works. And then if we fade through, this is the Epic EVO. Nice raspberry color. We can see that this is coming in £8,150 cheaper. Specialized never list their weight, so even though they talk about the S-Works being super light, we have no idea how heavy it is in comparison to the cheaper version, which is pretty annoying. We can obviously see though that the S-Works has beefier Kashima coated forks on it, and I can't help but think I prefer the dropper without this thing on the back, but personal preference. The other thing of note here is the difference in gearing is quite noticeable when you see me fade between the two. The S-Works version with its SRAM XX1 Eagle has quite a bigger range than the NX Eagle that we have on the cheaper one. That's got an 1150 rear cassette as opposed to the 1052 on the S-Works version, so that makes quite a big difference. So the other bike I was asked to put into the database was the Canyon Ultimate CF SL8 Rim. Let's load that up. This is a good choice, whoever asked me to put this into the database. Great value bike, and by today's standards, super light, 7 kilos. Getting a lot of bike here for your money. It's got the Ultegra mechanical group set, decent pair of tyres. You just have to be okay with rim brakes, but there we go, they did work for 100 years, so they'll probably be okay. You can also get a 105 version of this bike, albeit without the one-piece aero bars. Different pair of tyres and slightly cheaper wheels. But again, pretty good bike really. Can't go wrong there. And in fact, if we search for all-round road race bike up here, get the bikes, and we actually sort by value formula, 60 bikes pop up. Now I can only apply the value formula to these bikes in yellow because these bikes here, the manufacturers don't list the weight, which is really annoying. But it turns out the Canyon Ultimate CF SL8 Rim, sorted with my value formula, comes out on top. So like I say, that's a good choice of bike. And next in the list is the SL7. So a couple of crackers, I think. Why not? Why don't we just go to Canyon's website and see if we can buy one. Here we go, CF SL8. Let's have a look. Coming soon, unless you happen to be an XL. No specified date at all. So that's pretty annoying. When's that gonna get better? Does anybody know? Remember in the old days when you could actually buy whatever bike you wanted? Seems like a long time ago. Alrighty, so the next bike I was asked to put in is the Arc 8 Eero. Now, I hadn't even heard of Arc 8, so I had to look this one up. Don't know much about them. I can tell you that this version here, the Eero Ekar, I think that's how you say it, comes with the Campagnolo Ekar group set, which is actually 13 speed, which is pretty cool. That's a lot of gears. So obviously a one bite, clearance for 50mm tyres, and the listing said it came with Pirelli Cinturato gravel tyres, but actually the photo got WTB tyres on. So I can't tell you much about this bike, but I quite like it. So let's compare it to the Ridley Kanzo Adventure. This was the next bike I was asked to put into the database, and if we compare between the two, you can see they've got quite different geometry. Of note, if you click the side-by-side comparison button, Arc 8 have actually photographed the size large of their bike, but I've put in the geometry of a size medium, which is probably the one that I would buy if I was going to buy this bike. But as you can see, the Kanzo Adventure is a lot longer, slacker, longer chainstays, so more albatross. And in fact, if we load up Gravel Adventure and sort by the geo formula, get the bikes, we'll see that out of the bikes that I have in the database, the Arc 8 pretty much towards the Hummingbird end of the spectrum, and the Kanzo Adventure is all the way across to the albatross side of the spectrum. And it was actually when I was comparing these two bikes that I had a look around the Ridley website and realised I haven't done much on the Ridley bikes, and I actually found the range a little bit confusing. So I've added quite a few Ridley bikes to the database, and if I load them all up, sort by geometry formula, again you'll see the Kanzo Adventure is the most albatross bike that they make, and the most Hummingbird is the Noah Fast. So I think possibly what was confusing me was the Kanzo Fast and the Noah Fast. I was a bit confused by those two, and we'll come back and compare those two in a second. These three here down to the Kanzo Speed are gravel bikes, gradually becoming more road biased. Then we've got the Phoenix, which is the endurance bike, the Helium, which is the all-round lightweight road race bike. Then we've got the Noah Eero Plus. This one confused me slightly as well because I thought it would be more like the actual Noah, but if you compare those two, they're quite different. And then the Noah is basically the cheaper version of the Noah Fast. The frame is basically the same except made with cheaper carbon, I think. I'm not going to bother getting all these up now. Come to the website and check them out for yourself. What I am going to do is get up the Kanzo Fast and the Noah Fast and fade between the two there, and you can see they basically have the same DNA, except clearly this is a gravel bike and this is a road aero bike. And in fact, if we line up the front wheel so that they're both sitting on the ground about the same position and then fade between the two, you'll see how the big tires lift it up and make it even bigger. And clearly much longer bike. So this is a big old albatross and this is a little Hummingbird, but quite confusing if you don't see them compared together like that. Also clearly geared for the road surface that they get used on the most. Okay, so that's cleared up the whole Ridley thing, so that's good. And then the last one for today, I was asked to put in the Trek Emonda ALR 5. So I quite like this bike. You can buy the frame separately in quite a cool silver grey kind of grad colour. I thought it would be quite cool to build it up into a nice lightweight climbing bike. I just never pulled the trigger on buying it. This version here, it's a little bit heavy, 9 kilograms, but it's got the Shimano 105 group set on it. I suspect the Bontrager alloy wheels are pretty heavy and a pretty cheap pair of Bontrager tires. So how about we compare this to its bigger brother, the SL5. And that's fading between the two there. And do Trek still call this H1 and H2? I'm not really sure anymore, as in the geometry there at the front of the bike. Comment down below if you know that. I like the colour of this frame, looks nice. But the problem here is, even though it's the ultra light 500 series OCLV carbon that you're buying, if you compare it to the ALR 5, it's heavier. So you're paying £500 more and you're getting a bike 110 grams heavier. Which is a little bit galling, isn't it, really? I guess you could say that this bike has more upgrade potential than the aluminium bike, but you would still expect to buy a carbon bike and it to be lighter than the aluminium bike. I would really love to ride both of these bikes to get a feel for what the differences are. So Trek, if you're listening, send me these bikes and I'll have a go on them. So that's great. Thank you. So that's it for this video. I'll leave you with this funky picture of the new Madone. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Check out my website, bikotic.com. Don't forget to leave me feedback and bike requests. Until next time.